Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast, Frenemies. Joined as always by David Swor. I am DJ Cox. Tonight, we do the Houston Trastros, or also known as the Houston Astros. So, obviously, we've got a lot to talk about with this team. Ton of things happened with this team last year in the off season. So, we've got a lot to get to. So, David, give me the 2019 recap of the Houston Astros.
Well, what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. Right, DJ? That's how we can sum up the 2019 season. No, I'm just kidding. I won't get off too far on that tangent. So, 2019 Astros, I remember looking at this roster the beginning of the year and saying, I can't think of any better team in the league. I see no way that they don't win. You look at the roster from 2019, there's several for sure Hall of Famers, Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke, and then you have a whole list of guys who are on Hall of Fame tracks, which would be like Garrett Cole, Altuve, and mixed in amongst that were stud young guys like Carlos Correa, who seems like he's been around forever, but it's only 25 years old. And so, man, the Astros were loaded, and of course they delivered 109 wins on the season, got all the way to the World Series. And, of course, the way they got there might be a little bit shaky. And they're paying a pretty heavy price for it. Their manager's gone now. And, they had to give up some draft picks and stuff. But, man, the Astros are still an interesting team. I think of them a lot like the Phillies. A couple things fall the right way. The Astros are right back. I mean, they still have a really good young team. But the 2019 Astros, they were loaded. That was a really great team.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments on that. 107 wins and 55 losses. The AL champions lost in Game 7 to the Nats. Pretty awesome World Series. Like you said, man, this team was absolutely loaded. Bregman was an MVP candidate for them last year. What an outstanding season. Really disappointing story with Bregman. Not anything that was his fault or anything. My Westmont team had him lined up to come in to our Westmont youth program to come sign autographs and meet some of our Westmont kids, and they were in town to play the White Sox, and it just so happened that they, of course, got rained out and had to switch the date of the next game, so we had to cancel that. So we had Bregman coming in. That would have been a lot of fun to meet him and talk to him and all that kind of stuff. But I did go see them play the White Sox when they came into town. My daughter Lindsay got Altuve and Carlos Correa's autograph because that's what she does. She gets the best players on every team's autograph somehow.
But she gets that from Nicole for sure. We know she does not get that from you.
That's a good point, man. She's way better at that than I am. There's no doubt about it. So, but yeah, I saw this team play live, and their lineup is just absolutely loaded. It's unbelievable how much talent this team has. That pitching staff they had last year, they were legit, and it took Scherzer and Strasburg to stop them. It really did, and they had an outstanding year. Fell just short. I just want to get this out of the way because I don't really want to focus too much on bad things in this podcast. I really don't. I know we got a lot going on in this world that's bad, but this is a part of the Astros now, so we do have to bring up the monkey in the room. So give me your thoughts, David. What are your thoughts about this whole Astros thing with the whole cheating scandal that they got going on? Give me what you feel, how you feel about it all. Obviously, they've paid a price, and you just mentioned what the prices were, but what do you think about this in our game?
Well, it was definitely wrong. There was rules written to stop this kind of thing. So it wasn't like – and steroids were wrong. But, steroids was the huge gray area back in the day. There wasn't a line in the rules that says, don't do HGH or whatever, So it was technically, not illegal. But this was pretty black and white. As a former pitcher, I can tell you, I would much rather face a guy on steroids than a guy that knows what's coming, because it takes every bit of deception. The only advantage basically that I have, because as you know, if you time something up, you can hit anything. So the only advantage that I have is to try to trick you. Well, if you know what's coming, you're going to hit it. And so very dirty. It's going to be interesting to see how the league reacts. There at one point in the spring, they were definitely getting thrown at a lot. I don't know if that'll continue or not with everything that's going on. I don't condone that, by the way. It's over. So I'm more in the camp like I am with steroids. Hey, let's acknowledge that it happened, fix it, and move on. But definitely something that changed a lot of games. Would they have still won the ALCS not doing that? Probably. I still think they were probably the best team anyway. But we don't know that for sure. And so, it definitely sucks for baseball, but I'm ready to move on from it. Tired of talking about
it. We had to get this one out of the way because this is something that I'm tired of talking about it too. But here's my question to you though. You said that if you know what is coming, that's worse than facing somebody with steroids. And I agree with that. I really do. Okay. But David, I want you to kind of detail this a little bit for us. How in the world did they know what was coming?
So apparently there was a camera in center field or in the outfield somewhere that was focused in on the catcher. So as the catcher's giving signs, they're watching it somewhere in the clubhouse or in the dugout somewhere. At that point, it's relayed to the dugout. They signal to the hitter by hitting a trash can, or I'm sure that wasn't the only way. See, this is the kind of stuff you start going down a rabbit hole. How often did it happen? We don't know. And then that was relayed to the batter. Now, supposedly there was no device under the shirt. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I can't buy it because the whole Altuve, my wife didn't want my shirt pulled off. Sorry. That just doesn't hold water for me. So I don't know how it was getting relayed every time, but somehow or another it was getting relayed to the batter. So I know where you're going with this, though. Go ahead.
Okay, here's my thing, okay? How in the world did the Astros have this down so good like everybody thinks that they did? Now, I get that what they were doing was wrong. I'm not debating that. So please don't take me the wrong way. It's in the rule book. You are not supposed to use cameras to steal signs. I get that, okay? And we can argue all day long about stealing signs, period. We're not going to do that because these guys are in a different category, obviously, with this. All right, but for them to be able to take a camera, zoom in on a catcher, you got to remember, he's given the signs. And as soon as he gives those signs, they've got to automatically somehow get it to the guy that's in the dugout or the clubhouse or whatever, hit the can or buzz it in time pretty much as the guy's pitching the ball. So I have no idea how they had this down to a science. I'm baffled by it, to be honest with you. Go ahead.
I've thought about this before as well, because those signs change from game to game. The sequence will change from game to game, or they should anyway. And so I think more research was done than just like in that moment. Because you can watch any game, you can get any MLB package. They're going to be focused in on the catcher the entire time the pitcher is getting ready to throw, and figure out the sequence. So actually, I don't think it was really that hard. Now it probably took them several innings to figure that out. But I don't think it would be as hard as you think it would be to figure that out. I really don't.
Okay, so I know as a player sometimes, I'm just going to be honest with you, we would steal signs, okay? We would get the signs not through any device or anything, but just from the guy being on second base, reading in on the catcher or whatever. He would give you one hand or two hand for what's coming. That happens all the time, okay? Let's just get that out there. So the problem that I had with that as a hitter is if I'm looking at that guy and he messes up, I'm done with him. Like, I'm completely done because he made me look foolish because I swung at a pitch I thought was coming that didn't come, and I got on front or I was way behind, and I looked foolish. Then I'm angry. Then I'm not listening to that guy anymore. So how in the world do the Astros have this down to a complete science to where they were getting it every single time, to where these guys are sitting on Aroldis Chapman slider and hitting bombs? Okay, there's no way that Altuve ever should have hit Chapman's, and I know this chaps you pretty bad. That ball that he hit, he knew what was coming. There's 100% guarantee on that. He knew that was coming.
You know, and with a guy like Chapman, it's easy. It's 50-50.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And even his slider's 90 miles an hour. So you can not look real stupid sometimes, you know. Now, when his slider's on, it's hard to hit if you know it's coming. But if he halfway hangs one, you can foul it off, you know, because it's not that much slower. But, yeah, in his case, and a lot of relievers' case, that's pretty easy. You got, you know, 1 in 3 chance, you know, or 1 in 2 chance of guessing correctly. And so if you can look through that camera and realize, okay, this is for sure coming. We got this down. Then, I mean, especially like I said with Chapman, it's easy.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I believe this, that one day one of these guys that was involved in this is going to write a book on this, okay? He's going to make money off this team. Teammates are obviously going to be upset with that, mad at him, but they're going to throw money at somebody that was on this team, and they're going to take it because they want the money. And they're going to detail and show us exactly how they did this thing, because right now they're kind of just, you know, let's get past this. But I honestly would be very intrigued on how they pulled this off, because they had it down to a science. They made one of the best pitchers in the game, in Clayton Kershaw, look absolutely terrible in the playoffs. Yeah. They almost ruined Yu Darvish's career. They destroyed the Dodgers pitcher's mentality to where Darvish almost quit because he thought he was so bad. And Clayton Kershaw, the greatest regular season pitcher of all time almost, is getting destroyed in the playoffs. So to figure all this out, I don't know how they did it. They did it. It was illegal. They were obviously very good at it. And, you know, AJ deserves to get fired for it, because if you're the manager and you know that's going on and you don't stop it, I'm sorry. You're responsible. You're the leader of the team. I think it falls more on the leaders of that team, like the manager, GM, all that kind of stuff, than it does the players. Players are obviously still wrong, but the head guys are the ones that got to fall for that. Here's another thing I fight you with a little bit, David. So I'm just not buying something. Okay. We really got to clean up some things with baseball as far as signs go, okay? This is absolutely ridiculous that they can get their sign stealing so easy because of a camera. That's sloppy, okay? And a little of that I still feel is on the other team. Yes, the Astros stole their signs, but I'm still to this day not convinced that those guys should have done a whole lot more to hide their signs or figure something out. I'm telling you, armbands will slow the game down a little bit, and I hate that. I understand that. But if you have an armband and you are calling in numbers and the other team can somehow steal that, tip your cap, okay? Because I've seen this system work, and you can't touch it unless you've somehow got their sheet, their numbers. You got no chance. Offensively and pitching-wise, this should be used. I don't understand it. Giving signs is old. You're going to get them picked in the second inning if you don't rotate them, and even when you rotate them, you've got guys watching you every inning. You got guys that are designated that day to do it. You know, this is your job for the day. You pick these up, you give them to us, you see what you can get. It's dirty, yes, but it's part of the game. And it's on other teams to change the way that they're doing this, because it's not working. And even if they do stop all the camera stuff, it's still not going to stop from a standpoint of visual and watching. And, you know, teams are still going to cheat. It's still going to happen, even though they're cracking down on it. So they got to clean that up, man.
It's a huge gray area. I mean, it's cut and dry. They shouldn't use the cameras, but we know that this has been going on forever. You know, maybe not this sophisticated. And you're right. The Astros must have been awesome at it. And, you know, from the Dodgers, just using them as an example, it's obvious they were not sophisticated at all with their signs, because if you're picking it up for every single pitcher, you know, over, multiple games over even years. At some point you got to start thinking, man, how are they picking this up? And it's got to be signs. You've watched videos, you've made sure your hands are in the same spot, you're not tipping any pitches, and we know this. It's going to be way more widespread than the Astros. The Red Sox have been accused of it. The Yankees have been accused of it. Those players that were on some of these last few teams, they didn't all stay there. And so they didn't just keep it to themselves. They probably went to the next place and were like, hey, this is how we knew what was going on or whatever. And so, there's millions of dollars at stake. People's careers are at stake. And just like with steroids, if somebody can get an advantage, they're going to do it.
Yeah, so there's another spot me and you don't really agree on is I feel you mentioned that steroids were not illegal in baseball, but they were illegal in society.
It's true. So, yeah, you're right.
That's why I don't get it. Like, if it's illegal in society, how do you give these guys a little it wasn't illegal in baseball?
It's because your boy, the commissioner at the time, I can't think of his name.
Our Bud.
He knew what was good for him, man. That's why. They weren't testing for it. And I'm telling you, I don't care what anybody says. Some of these guys that were clean, they were using them. Trust me. I think it's way more widespread. I mean, do you look at Andy Pettit and say, "Oh, I bet that guy used steroids"? Of course not. And so like some of these guys who everybody thinks was squeaky clean, they may have been for some of their career, but I promise you, it was way more widespread than we'll ever know, because nobody's going to admit it now. The guys that got busted, testify before Congress, Rafael Palmeiro, and still lie about it. So, exactly. So I think they're going to find out that this was way more prevalent than, like I said, we may never know because people don't want their careers tarnished, but it was out there.
Oh, it definitely was, David. And the older that we got and the more that we understood what was going on, when we look back at our college careers, wow.
Yeah, what's going on our team, man? Let's just be honest about it. We know that. And I've told you this before. If somebody comes to you with a pill and says, "Hey, this pill right here, it might get you drafted," your 21-year-old self is going, I think I might take that pill. I mean, let's just be honest about it. If you thought you could get away with it. And it's the same thing for these major leaguers. Hey, you can take this pill, Barry Bonds, and, right now you're good, but this is going to make you the best ever. This is going to make you hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're not going to find out about it because they weren't testing for it. So anyway, I'm not saying that it was right. I just think it's ridiculous that people just try to glass over it and be like, we just want to pretend that this never happened. And all these great players, through this whole time period, if we find out that there's any thought that they did this, we're not going to let them in. When in fact, I promise you, some of the players that they're letting in have used them. There's no doubt in my mind. I'd bet any amount of money on it.
Oh, I know for a fact that they've let the steroid guys in. That's for sure. They've already pretty much proven that. There's some guys, since they're major leaguers, we can call them out. Mike Piazza and Ivan Rodriguez. Come on, let's be honest. I know you're gonna say Jeff Bagwell.
I mean, I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But you know how it is. The guys that you just talked about, they basically had the same body type. You know what I mean? I mean, Jeff Bagwell had forearms as big as my thighs. So I just have a really tough time believing it. And like I said, man, you don't have to even look like it. Who knows?
D. Gordon.
Right. And that's been me and you have went round and round and round about this. But even guys like Tim Raines, okay, we don't know if he used it or not. There's no way to prove it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I just don't think that you should flush these guys' accomplishments, whether you want to put an asterisk around it or in a different way. Just tell the truth. Hey, this guy hit the most home runs ever, but he was using steroids, and we know that. End of story. But you don't want to you don't want to just forget that, hey, this is what he did. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my argument.
And I like the argument you make about the pill. I'll tell you what, man, if I was in college and somebody told me that, hey, this is what's going to take you from where you're at to getting drafted, take this pill, you do this thing, telling you, man, I can't tell you. And I never did take steroids, so I'm not going to say that I did or anything, which I could have, because like you said, the opportunity for me to do that was there. And I will never say anything about that, but it was there and I did not take it. And, I was close to being drafted out of senior year. I was close to, the Orioles a little bit, but didn't happen, obviously. Even if I would have been drafted, it would have been really late, just making peanuts, and it would have been really, really hard for me. But if somebody would have told me, hey, do this, and you can go way up here and do this and do that, man, who knows, David, really, to be honest with you. And I don't necessarily blame them. Who wouldn't want to make $100 million because you're hitting the ball 500 feet because you're on the juice? I mean,
right.
I don't blame them. I'm not saying, I've never said I blame them. I just think that they did cheat the game. And so from that standpoint, I do believe the Hall of Fame should never happen for those guys. There should be consequences for their actions.
Like I said, the shame of it is consequence enough for me. But it is, and we've had this discussion. We went round and round, but plenty of guys have cheated in other ways, in well-known other ways, and nobody says boo about it. So, but anyway, it's a circular argument. It's two different ways of thinking. I've always said they call it the Hall of Fame for a reason. It's because they're famous, and the most famous guys should be in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Put in there that he gambled. Okay, just do it. Just do it. He's apologized for it. He says he should have done it. Put the famous guys in there. You can't tell the story of baseball in the 90s and early 2000s without Barry Bonds, without Sammy Sosa, without Mark McGwire. So put him in the Hall of Fame. That's where I'm at with it.
And you know what? Here's another thing too. And since we're talking Astros, this is going to come up when Verlander, when Cole, when Greinke, when Altuve, when these guys that are Hall of Famers, and let's just be honest, they're Hall of Famers, okay? Jose Altuve's numbers as a second baseman, we're not looking at his numbers like we were the other night with the second baseman. We were talking about Chase Utley, and Altuve's there, and with even some of these guys like Bregman, he's got a shot, and Correa, really. I mean, he's got kind of a longer shot than the other guys, but they've got a ton of guys who are Hall of Fame potential, and you're going to have to tell a story of how they cheated the game, and you're going to be kind of in the same boat with the steroid guys as far as, do you let somebody who did something like that in? It's a big mess, and it's something I don't look forward to having to have that debate when we go every year to talk about these guys and should he be in when he did this, and the same as the steroids. And
yeah,
it's going to come, though.
It's tough. It's tough, and people, and it's this way in the Christian life. They want to grade sins. You know what I mean? And it's the same way with this. It's like, well, for some reason, steroid sin's way up here, but stealing signs is here, and I just don't buy it. You're cheating either way. So.
Yeah, I got you, and we'll get off this. And like I said, I don't want these podcasts to be like this, but
we're definitely having a Hall of Fame podcast for sure. We have more arguments about that than anything, and it's fun because it's always heated. So we're definitely having a Hall of Fame one.
We are definitely going to do that. And that's going to be like a December. We're going to get on there pretty much every week when we do it weekly in December. That's going to be our thing, is Hall of Fame. Up until the announcement comes in January, we're going to debate that. So if you're looking forward to future podcasts, some of those Hall of Fame will definitely be what we do. So moving along, I know we kind of talked about that for a little while here, but just kind of have to with this team, unfortunately, because this has been them for the last 4 years, and it's kind of the thing we got to get out of the way. So, all right, biggest strengths of the 2020 Astros. Go for it.
Dude, that lineup is loaded.
Yeah.
They pretty much didn't lose anybody from the team last year. they're awesome at every position. You can line them up against any team, and they will hit with anybody. So and it's deep. They some of their backups are good. And so yeah, for me it's easy. It's got to be the lineup.
There's no doubt it's the lineup. Carlos Correa, 75 games last year is all he played, and you kind of forget that. He missed a ton of time last year, and he still hit 21 bombs with 59 ribbies and had a 359 on base, 280 batting average.
Is it possible for Carlos Correa to be underrated? Isn't it funny? When he came up, it was like he was the talk,
Yep.
And now it seems like you don't hear his name. But I did the same thing. I looked at his stats, and it was like, wow, And he's just this year, he's 25 years old. Wow. But
yeah, I remember when the Astros drafted him. He was on the MLB Network. He was actually in the studio when they drafted him, and I was watching his highlights from when they drafted him, and I looked a little deeper after that, and I'm like, they got a stud for many years coming here. And this team is just loaded with young talent. They're all young, man. And it's just unbelievable. Springer last year, who doesn't even get mentioned hardly, had 39 bombs and 96 ribbies with a 292 average and a 383 on base percentage. Yearly Gurriel, 31 bombs, 104 ribbies, 298, 343. Altuve, 298 batting average, 353 on base, 31 bombs, 74 ribbies in 124 games. He was also hurt for about 40 games. Bregman, 41 bombs, 112 ribbies, 296, 429 on base, 423. He had 119 walks, David. That blew my mind. Yeah. 119 walks and 9 hit by pitches. Michael Brantley, who's never even mentioned, had 90 ribbies, 311 average. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be hard to find anybody's lineup I like more, including my Yankees. I just love the way this team's made up. It's got a great mix of young guys, and so yeah, I can't argue at all, man. That lineup is unbelievable.
And there's really no doubt. You would want to think of that rotation, but since they lost Cole, it definitely favors the lineup now. They're definitely the strength of this team by far. I mean, 1 through 9, you don't get a break. Not a single break in that lineup. I would hate to have to face that if I was a pitcher. They're absolutely loaded. Like you said, I believe they're one of the best offense, if not the best offense in the game. So that's definitely their biggest strength. So what about their biggest weakness?
So it's crazy with the names that are in it, but it's got to be the rotation. They lost Cole, of course. And, kind of an unsung hero for them. They lost Wade Miley. Won 14 games for him last year. ERA under 4. Gave him some quality innings. They're banking pretty hard on Lance McCullers to come back. He's been great. He's kind of had an up and down career coming back from injury. You got Urquidy, who's a young guy that they really like. He was pretty good, and so they're expecting him to fill a role there. And then looking at the rest of this, I haven't read much up on it, but I'm assuming they're going to probably use an opener, Peacock as an opener, I'm assuming. And so that to me is their weakest point. Their bullpen is just as strong as it ever was. You could say that that's a strength. And so while their rotation is to me their weakness, I think they have more enough in the bullpen to cover it up.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's hard to look at this team and find a weakness. So if you were going to go for it from perspective of bullpen, offense, and pitching, I would agree with that because of the Cole loss. However, I'm going to go in a different direction, and I believe once I say what direction I'm going, you're going to completely understand this.
I know where you're going.
You know exactly where I'm going.
Yes, I know where you're going. Go ahead. I've been waiting on this.
And it is the manager, the number one weakness. I am not a fan of Dusty Baker. I am not. I am sorry. I just do not think.
I want to know why.
Okay, here we go. He cannot win a World Series, David. He has had the best teams imaginable. He had the best player in the world and blew the World Series for the Giants in 2002 against the Angels. He made the dumbest moves I've seen. And it's hard for a manager to stand out in a World Series where you think, this guy's really blowing it. But man, did he blow it. And you can call out a few things on a manager during a World Series game. You're gonna on everybody. But move after move after move. And then he comes to the Cubs and he blows that team. And he just does it year after year after year. Now he's been given the keys to the best team in the American League with the Yankees. And I just do not buy it, man. I do not buy him as manager. AJ went down. AJ was a good manager, but he deserved to lose his job. He's 71 years old. And I don't know how he's going to do it. I really don't. He's a great regular season manager, so he's going to get him to the playoffs, and he's going to blow it, not win the World Series for this team. I really believe that. I really, with everything I got, think that the Yankees and the Astros are going to play in the American League Championship, and he's going to have a lot to do with the Yankees winning it. So you ought to thank him, David.
Well, I knew when I was reviewing this team this was going to come up. And let me just say this. I felt the same way about when the Yankees hired Joe Torre as you feel about Dusty Baker. I'm not kidding. Look at Joe Torre's record before he came to the Yankees. And so, I don't know, man. Dusty's got something going on there. He got, I believe it's 3 teams into the playoffs. Struggles after that, but I don't blame him for giving him a chance. I really don't. I guess you could have went with one of the young analytic guys or whatever, but Dusty's won a ton of games, man. So I knew this was going to come up. It's so awesome.
I cannot believe the Astros signed him. I am baffled by it. And if you live in Houston and you're listening to this and you're happy about this guy coming, please stop.
I so hope they win. I'm pulling for the Astros.
David, there is no way the Astros win the World Series this year with this talent. And this is hard for me to say because he's going to blow it somehow. I promise you, he's going to do it. He's going to make them like 51-9 in the regular season. They're going to choke in the playoffs and be done. Okay, it's just going to happen. He's going to end up starting, he's going to put Peacock in as a starter over Verlander or something absolutely stupid. And these guys are going down. Not a fan.
All right, I'm going to keep track of that and remind you of this later.
Best case scenario.
Best case scenario for them is back to the World Series. They won 107 games last year, and so I was looking over this team. They lost some really key players. And so I'm going to say that it's going to be really tight between them and the A's this year. And so I could see them winning that division. I could see them being a wild card contender. But I do think they have the ability. I still would like to see them have one more good starting pitcher, which they could still get. But I think they have the ability to get to the World Series. I don't know that they have the ability to win it based upon the 2 teams, the Nationals and the Dodgers, that are waiting on the other side. But I think they have the ability to get there.
I 100% agree. And I 100% agree with the biggest point you brought up, I think, in this whole thing is they're going to find another starter, okay? And it's going to be a little more tricky this year with the trade deadline because there's going to be a lot of teams in there. There really is. However, we know that the team that we're going to talk about next, the Tigers, the Orioles, the Marlins, the Pirates, if you're looking at some of those rotations there, which the Houston Astros, if they're smart, are probably doing right now, I would look at those guys very closely to find a number 3 starter. If you can get a stud pitcher from one of those 4 teams, or there may be a few more teams there that are going to be out of it, but not many. So they're going to have to start looking at those kind of teams. They're going to get somebody, and if they got those 3 guys going in with this offense, they're going to be okay. I really believe that.
Yeah, I agree.
So worst case scenario.
Well, worst case scenario is Dusty bombs. This lineup is going to carry them pretty far. Worst case scenario is they miss the playoffs, and that could totally happen too. It's a sprint. I was listening today. The Giants, who did not have a good year last year, had a 60-game stretch where they were the best team in baseball. I did not know that. That was June, July, if I'm not mistaken. And so, worst case scenario is they miss the playoffs. There's going to be a lot of teams fighting for it, a lot of teams in it. I think the trade deadline is going to be really shifty because, a lot of these teams are probably going to look at this year and say, I'm not going to cash in a good prospect and pay a bunch of money to win a World Series in 60 games. You know what I mean? There's just not enough reason for them to want to do that as far as finances. And again, I think that scenario of them missing the playoff is very possible. I think they could definitely underachieve. Dusty's got a tough job on his hands. I mean, they're expected to win some games. And so, worst case scenario is, they're mediocre. I think they'll be above 500 just based upon the guys that they have. But, they could definitely miss the playoffs for sure.
Every job is tough for Dusty. No, here's the thing, though. You're right. I agree with you, okay? And I truly believe this, okay? I really believe that since a lot – I don't really know if there's going to be fans in the stands, and this kind of factors in a little bit to the Astros, so this is why I'm talking about this. We're not real sure what every team's going to do. Some teams are allowing fans. Some teams are not, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what's going on. I can't keep anything straight. However, if there are no fans in the stands and the Astros are playing, that benefits them. And this is why. You're not going to get booed. Okay, you're not going to get the stuff thrown at you. This stuff is going to happen to these guys this year. I think, like you said, a lot of that got out of the way in the first spring training that we had where they were getting plunked some. I think that some teams might have got that out of their system a little bit. I'm not sure if everybody has. Okay. However, if these guys are getting plunked a lot and somebody goes down hurt, that's something that could possibly happen to these guys, and they've got targets on their backs. Right? There's a lot of people that have been tweeting things like we haven't forgotten these guys. I've seen it on some Twitter pages of some of these pitchers. They're still wanting to go after these guys, and if they injure one of their players, that could lead to this unbelievable offense going down. The fans aren't there to give them. I think that's going to be a good thing for the Astros. Maybe one of the very few teams that's going to benefit from no fans. So we'll see, we'll see. And like I said, worst case scenario is Dusty ruins another ship. I'm going to always throw that in there too. So I just can't get over that, man. I just was, how in the world, man? Why are me and you not getting a chance to run this thing? I mean, why are we giving him the keys to this? I want to coach that team.
It could be worse, though. I mean, let's be honest. It could be worse, right? I mean, the guy has taken 3 teams. It's at least 3. It might even be 4 teams to the playoffs.
I know the Giants, the Cubs, and the Reds.
Did he take the Nationals to the playoffs, too?
Oh, yeah. So 4. He's taken 4 to the playoffs because the Reds had some monster teams when he was there, too. 97 wins he had with the Reds a couple times. 91 maybe a second time with the Reds.
Every team he left sucked like the next year.
Yeah. I get that, David. I am not knocking the fact that he's a good regular season manager. I'm not. He's a very good regular season manager. But how in the world has he ever won a World Series yet? He's been managing for 25 years, and he's had really good teams. He's never done it. I just – why do you give this – I don't know, man. I think there was some better options out there. I do understand that they were kind of stuck from a standpoint of all the other managers that were – out there floating around were signed to different teams because they got to Dusty really late when the penalties came down. I get that. However, I just don't understand how we're recycling managers like this, man. I don't get it. I think somebody else should be getting a chance that's proved themselves in this game. We got to get out of that funk of hiring some of these managers, man, and go on and get some other guys. But no. All right, I'll get off that. So do you know of any position battles on this team?
Dude, their catcher situation is awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Chirinos, he wasn't like a superstar catcher, but very solid. Very solid. And I'm thinking, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm thinking he produced, if you're into WAR, almost 4 which is a good number for a catcher. And so they've replaced him with Martin Maldonado, who's been around them for a while. Defensive stud, not really known to be a great hitter. Their backup is Dustin Garneau, who, from what I can tell, is just a guy. I hope you're not listening, Dustin. But anyway, he's just a guy, and so that has potential to hurt him. We know catcher is a big position. It's a key position. The one good thing about it is obviously they brought Maldonado back because the pitchers liked him, and so that's going to help. But from an offensive standpoint, that's got really potential to hurt him.
So I kid you not, the Cubs had Martin Maldonado for a little bit there when they had an injury to Wilson Contreras there. We had him for a little while before he went back to the Astros. This guy's a stud defensively. You're right about that. Absolute stud, rocket of an arm, very good blocker. But if I was Dusty, man, I would a little bit think about DHing for my catcher and let my pitcher hit. He is a terrible hitter, and you're very right about that. He's an automatic out. Let's just be honest. He's not going to hit. If he hits above the Mendoza line, they're getting some out of him, and that is their biggest weakness. I think you're right as far as that lineup goes. No doubt is you got to hit Martin Maldonado in the 9 spot. You better be hitting him 9, Dusty. But he's terrible, and that's a very good point you're making. And the guy behind him, so that's a good one. I'm going to go with the back end of the rotation. You got a few guys there. You got Jose, you got Josh James, you got Austin Pruitt. Those 3 guys are going to be battling for back end spot of the rotation there. I do believe that, once they pick somebody else up, Lance McCullers will be the 4 guy, and they'll have a solid 3 guy to go behind Greinke and Verlander there. So I think it's going to fall that way. It's going to be Verlander, Greinke, somebody they pick up, and then McCullers, and the 5th guy is not going to matter. Just in the regular season, they can piece it together. But that is a battle that's going to go on. We're going to see who Dusty's going to pick to get the innings there in the 5th spot. So it'll be interesting to see who falls in that place. And then the rest of them will go into the bullpen, and they'll help out there. So they're not in a bad spot. This team's loaded, no doubt. But that's the one thing that I can come up with. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting. And, it may just be based upon how they start. Maybe if they start slow, they just hold their cards, finish the season, let some guys develop, and move on. It's going to be interesting.
So I'm going to give you their key losses from last year's team. You tell me the guy that you feel. Okay, moving on. That's the easiest one of every one of these podcasts that we've done, is to pick this guy. So, I mean, that is a tough one. And that the Yankees got him has kind of, for me, done this with the Yankees and this a little bit with the Astros. It really has. He's an absolute monster. He's the guy. Garrett Cole, Wade Miley. You got to throw A.J. Hinch in there. Robinson Chirinos, like you said, the catcher is gone now.
That's big. I'm telling you, that's going to be big.
And then Jake Marisnick is gone too, which was a spot outfield starter for them. Not a bad player. So they lost all those guys. Obviously, Garrett Cole's the guy that they're going to miss the most. That's a no-brainer. But anything else you can add on any of those guys?
No, and like I said, don't underestimate Wade Miley. I know he's not a darling of WAR and all that stuff. But Wade Miley's a solid pitcher, man.
Where did Wade Miley go, David?
Reds.
Okay. Yeah. Jeez, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Of course, Wade Miley went through a period there where he was just about ready to be out of baseball. I don't know what turned him around, if it was a new pitch or figuring something out. But Wade Miley's been good for 2 or 3 years now, and so it's not a fluke. Like I said, going from him to whatever no-name Brad Peacock or whoever, that's a big loss. It's a very big loss.
Yeah, that's true. I would be interested. I'm going to be interested to see what they do with Peacock. Like you were saying, that if they put him as a starter, that guy's very good. He's a very good reliever. And if he decides to put him in the 4 or 5 slot in that rotation, all of a sudden your rotation looks a lot better, in my opinion, because he's nasty, man. So if he can string it together and give him 5 to 6 innings every game, I'd consider starting him, no doubt. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Key gains. Dusty Baker, Austin Pruitt, who could be their 5th starter, and Blake Taylor, who they got in a trade from the Jake Marisnik. Any of those
Dusty
names?
Baker.
Yeah.
He might lose some games for him, but he'll win more than those other 2 guys.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I got to give you that. I mean, you got to really – he's going to win them some games, and none of those other 2 guys are. So, I mean, I guess we go with the manager here. They didn't do very much. They didn't have to, though. They really didn't. They're going to wait to get their 3rd starter at the deadline, which is smart to me. But they just didn't do much this offseason to add to this team, and they really didn't have to. So
I think they knew what was coming. I think they knew they were in trouble and kind of decided, hey, let's just step back here for a year and just stand pat. So
what do you got for prospects?
So the most interesting one to me is Forrest Whitley. That's their number 1 prospect. They need a starter really bad. If you were ever going to stick a guy out there and just let him air it out, this would be the year. The Astros farm system really is pretty weak. They don't have a lot of talent ready to come up. Jose Urquidy was another guy, which we talked about him a little bit. He had a good year last year. Those are their top 2 prospects, Whitley and Urquidy. The rest of those guys aren't in their top. The rest of their top 10 is not supposed to really make it up for another couple years, and so there's not a lot there. I guess they got a 3rd baseman that's interesting, but where's he going to play? He's not going to play 3rd. He ain't playing 2nd. So I'm not sure if he's just going to be trade bait or what, but not a lot to love in the Astros farm system right now.
Yeah, you're right about that. I'm going to echo the Forrest sentiments here. The only guy in the top 100 that they got right now, which is unbelievable. They're loaded with talent on the major league level, which is kind of the trade-off you take with that. Mm-hmm. Dealt a ton. A big reason why they don't have very many prospects is they got rid of a ton of them to get Verlander, Cole, and Greinke. And you can't blame them for that. You can't blame them. So Forrest is 6'7", 195. He's 22 years old. He's got a 9-15 record with a 4.71 ERA in the minors, which is not good. He has struggled. He's their 1st-round pick in 2016. He has had a 50-game suspension for drugs. He just, he needs
to eat some cheeseburgers.
He's what?
He needs to eat some cheeseburgers. 6'7", 195.
Oh my goodness, that stands out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, me and you we're getting close to 195, and we're not even 6 foot, man. So this is a string bean here. So I agree with that. I was kind of blown away by the weight. I had to double take 6'7", what? But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that could come up, and it's possible he could pitch this year. I don't think he's ready. I think he's still struggling a little bit, and maybe you throw him in the pen and try to get him an inning here and there to try and get him a little experience. But I really don't believe he's ready. I think some of the guys they have other options for right now are ready, and they could do that. The other guy I want to talk about who's not necessarily a prospect anymore, but is still a young guy in their system, on their regular team now that's going to get more playing time coming is Kyle Tucker. This guy is legit. He hasn't got much playing time, and rightfully so. Look at the outfield guys. He's behind Brantley, Josh Reddick, and he's not playing the corner over any of those 2 guys and with the stats they're putting up. But you know what, David? All 3 of their outfielders are free agents at the end of this year. All 3 of them. And they're not going to keep all 3 of those guys. So Tucker's going to come in next year and probably have a starting spot and a major role on this team. He's only had 131 at-bats in 2 years, and he's been up for every year, So he hasn't got much playing time, rightfully so, like I said. But he's going to take one of those spots next year. And his brother Preston was also in the Astros system for a while there, so they got good genes in that family. Preston, I believe, is maybe with the White Sox organization now. He's been bouncing around a lot, but good genes. He's going to be good. He's a left-handed stick, so another guy that you got to watch for a little bit there. So, yep. David, you got any trivia for me?
I'm so pumped up about this. This is the best trivia question I've ever had.
Yes.
All right, 2005 Astros went to the World Series. All right, this is two questions. Who was their team leader in home runs?
Okay, so 2005. I know that was obviously the year that the team I will not mention beat them.
That's right. Your
And you're
favorite
gonna,
team.
yeah, yeah. um, I am going to know for a fact that it's not Craig Biggio and it's not Jeff Bagwell. Because if you were excited about this question, it wouldn't have been that easy, and I would have immediately gone to Bagwell, but I'm not going to go there. So I'm going to guess a different person besides those two, which are the obvious first two that come to your mind. Biggio obviously didn't hit very many bombs, but when you think of that team, those are the two
Are
first
you
names that
sure?
come.
Are you sure he didn't hit very many bombs that year?
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm not gonna throw him in there. There's no way he did. That's a good one. I'm trying to think of an outfielder on that team who would have been the guy that did that. Because let's go. I'm gonna try and say this is probably wrong, but let's go. Let's go, Richard Hidalgo.
That's a good guess. Morgan Ensberg.
Oh, third baseman on the team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Follow-up question. You'll never get this. I'll like pay for your kids' college if you get this. Who led the team in
I'm
hits
writing this
that
down.
year?
Say that again.
Who led the team in hits that year?
Whew. Let's see. So if you're saying hits, I want to say that would have to be like a shortstop or center fielder on that team, and I cannot remember who played short for them that year. Was it? Was it? Is Adam Everett their shortstop that year? I'm trying to. I don't know who their shortstop was. I'm trying to think. I got third base, second base, first base. Adam Everett keeps popping in my head playing shortstop for them for some reason. I know he was a shortstop for them. I'm not sure if that was the team he was on. So
I'm not going to get it.
I'm going to stick with Adam Everett.
Willie Taveras led that
Willie
team.
Taveras led the team in hits?
172 hits that year.
You
Isn't
have
that
got
crazy?
to be kidding me.
All those stars on that team. And Morgan Ensberg led them in homers, and Willie Taveras led them in hits. Actually, Biggio and Bagwell had injuries that year, and they still managed to make it to the World Series. So, anyway, I was so pumped when I found that because I knew you wouldn't get it. I was pumped.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to think of their rotation of the Astros there. Didn't they have Clemens,
Oswalt.
not Randy Johnson? Did they pick Randy Johnson up at the deadline, or was that earlier? I'm thinking they got
Pull him
Johnson.
up here. Andy Pettit was there.
Pettit, there's the guy. So it wouldn't
Yep.
have been Johnson then. It would have been Pettit. That was the guy I'm trying to
Let's
think of.
see here. They had your boy Brandon Backey and Wandy Rodriguez.
Oh, Wandy Rodriguez was so bad.
Yeah, he didn't have a good year that year either. They really rode in with Oswalt, Pettit, and Clemens, and everybody else.
Yeah, you can get to the World Series with those three, no doubt.
Clemens had a 1.87 ERA for him.
Oh my goodness,
Pretty stout.
those are good ones, man. That's Willie. Where did Willie Taveras even play for them? What position?
Center field.
Say that again.
Center field. My iPad just died, so I can't tell you who the shortstop was.
I want to say Adam Everett for some reason keeps popping in my head, but
You're probably right.
might not have been him though. I just can't come up with it. All right, so top 10 Astros homers all time.
Jeff Bagwell.
Yep, number one. Yep.
I'm gonna throw Richard Hidalgo in there just because you said his name.
Yep.
Let's see here from back in the old days. Glenn Davis.
Yes, sir.
Let's see here. Alex Bregman.
Nope, not quite.
Oh, Altuve is definitely gonna be there, right?
Tuve is not there yet either.
George Springer, he hadn't been around long enough.
Springer is there.
Okay. Man, there's a guy from back in the day. I can see his face. Why can't I not remember that dude's name? There's a guy in the 80s that's on there that I can't think of his name.
Yep.
I don't know. Go ahead. Fill me in. I got 5. That's more than I thought I would get.
That's pretty good, man. You got 5. You're missing your Captain Obvious missing one of them though. I can't let you miss this one. Come on, who's the face of the Astros from our generation besides Bagwell?
Bagwell, Biggio, Derek Bell on that list, by the way.
Biggio, you didn't even mention.
Oh, yeah.
He just accumulated. He wasn't really a home run hitter, but he's been around so long.
There forever. Yeah, that makes sense. Is Derek Bell on that list? Because he was there for a minute and hit some bombs.
Nope, not enough. He's close. He's in the top 20. I remember doing this list one time, and he's in the top 20. Jim Wynn, which is tough. That's an old-time guy. Cesar Cedeno's another old guy that's tough. He was a stud back in the 60s, 70s range. Bob Watson never would have got that. Jose Cruz is the guy you're thinking of from the 80s.
Yep.
Jose Cruz, that guy was a lot of fun to watch. Those 80 teams were a lot of fun to watch for the Astros, to be honest.
Absolutely.
So, all right, next segment. The Astrodome, the 8th wonder of the world, from 1965 to 1999. So I got to put it in there because it's our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Minute Maid Park, 2000 to present. Have you been to either?
Never been to either. I've always thought Minute Maid was a really cool stadium, though. I love the way the outfield wall looks. I remember seeing it when they first built it and thinking it looked really cool. If I'm not mistaken, it's got a retractable dome. Is that correct? And so watching baseball in Houston and AC would be the bomb. I would love to go to that stadium. I think it looks really cool. How about you?
No. So I believe when I was 3 or 4 years old, my grandmother had moved down to Houston, and my parents were down there living with her for a little while. And my dad, I believe, has gone to the Astrodome. He did not take me. I was kind of bummed. I was like, well, did you take me when I was 3 or 4 so I can count that? I obviously we can't remember any of that, but I would have just loved to have said I was there when I was 3 or 4. But he did not take me, so no to the Astrodome, but I did have a chance, to go there. I never did. And Minute Maid made no. So we actually were going to, if we did not have Clayton this year, we were going to go down. Our plan was to go to Rangers and Astros this year. Mm-hmm. We had a nice little trip planned to go down that way and knock those two out. That obviously didn't happen with everything going on too. So, yes, that field, like you said, looks really cool. It feels like it's one of those ballparks that is really tight. Like the fans are on top of the players, kind of. It seems like it's a really tight stadium where everything's just right there. Hitting
very
it over
loud.
Very loud. Very loud ballpark. Hit over the train tracks. How cool would that be to hit one over that? I definitely want to go to that one. That's one I look forward to. Some of these other fields, like we talk about in Tampa Bay, but Minute Maid definitely on the list of ones we've got to get to. So, man, we got some work to do on these fields, man.
No doubt. I might take that trip with you guys next year if you go to Texas. I think that'd be cool.
That would be fun. There's a lot of stuff to do beach-wise down there in Houston and everything too. So we could definitely make a family trip out of that one.
Yep.
So who is your favorite Astro player of all time, David?
This is so easy. Nolan Ryan. I love me some Nolan Ryan. He'll be my favorite Ranger too, and probably my favorite Met and Angel. So I love Nolan Ryan. I remember reading about him growing up and how he used to throw the ball through the tire and all that. And I definitely remember going in the backyard and thinking, well, if that's the way he made it, I'm going to make it the same way. I love the grit, the passion. He's one of my favorite all-time players. So I'm going to have to go with Nolan Ryan.
Yeah, that when you think of pitchers, if he's not on your top 10 all-time love pitchers, and there's something wrong with you. So that's a really good one. But I've always been Bagwell, BGO fans. I love those two. I'm going to go with BGO a little bit more than Bagwell. How many players, David, play professionally at catcher and then play professionally at second base and center field? Are you kidding me?
Crazy. I actually heard somebody on MLB Network talking about that today, believe it or not. I was driving around and listening to it on Sirius, and they were talking about that, how he came up as a catcher. And, like you said, and if I'm not mistaken, Bagwell came up as a catcher too. Or he came up in a different position and ended up playing. Maybe he came up as a third baseman. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, I always really respected BGO as well. Just consistent. Won a bunch of Gold Gloves, gritty guy. Big fan.
Yep, I think you're right about third base with Bagwell. He came up with the Red Sox and got traded for Larry Anderson in one of the biggest steal trades of all time. You talk about bad trades. You give away Larry Anderson for a Hall of Famer. Woo! So the Astros stole Bagwell on that trade. But yeah, there's all kinds of names. I love, like I said, Nolan Ryan. Kevin Bass, I was a big fan of when I was a kid. Jose Cruz on those 80s teams. Nolan Ryan, Mike Scott. That rotation was loaded. And I'll tell you what, did you ever play RBI baseball as a kid?
Better believe it. Yes, sir. Big fan of RBI baseball.
I will
still remember some of those players.
Destroy you in RBI baseball.
Man, what was so crazy about that was guys like Tony Armas, who was a stud in RBI baseball.
On the bench.
Yeah. It's it's been a long time, but actually when I got a Wii, that was the first thing that I did. I went because they had those old classic games. And I thought, man, I hope they have RBI baseball in here, but they didn't. But anyway.
I would love to have the arcade version of that down here in my man cave. I've got the Nintendo still and still play with the kids on that game a lot. Lindsay tries to beat me, but it's not going to happen ever. So, but that team on RBI baseball with the Astros, man, that was a good team. There's a lot of really good teams on that, and it was a lot of fun. So, but yeah, I would smoke you in.
Probably would. I'm not much of a video game guy. You probably would smoke me.
All right. So, former teammates.
Couldn't think of anyone.
Nope. Maybe Donnie. Donnie, are you out there?
Donnie, call us from your nursing home. Make sure you're okay.
Donnie Cruz. Can we get you, man? I'm trying to get a hold of you. I can't get a hold of you, buddy. What fan are you? Oh, well, I don't know. But yeah, definitely no Astros fans of any of our former teammates. So, David, I don't know, man, unless you got something to add. Speak now, forever hold your peace on the 2020 Astros.
Put it in the books. I'm good.
Put it in the books, brother. That's right. So, Astros fans, you got a lot to look forward to this year until the playoffs when Dusty blows it up. So that's it for our podcast on the Astros. We will sign off on this one. And you guys tune in as we do the Tigers next. Boy, that one's going to be rough, but we're going to get through talking some Tigers baseball here coming up soon. And once again, to our 27 viewers, once again for your number, David, thank you for tuning in. And we will post this one as soon as we can. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.